What is up, everyone? We've got 4-6 of the Cinema Squad here. Shawn from Lost on the Reel, Jonathan from Man of Movies, Dan from The Upside Dan, and myself, Jace from Burja, Rocar. And we're going to go ahead and chit-chat a little bit about Don't Worry, Darling. My goodness, did this give us a lot to go into. Starting off with, I know there's quite a bit of drama surrounding this film, and that's the one part that I myself don't really know so much about. So, Shawn, what exactly was the drama surrounding all this?
Okay, so there's a lot of things that is going on in Don't Worry, Darling. First and foremost, we have Olivia Wilde, who literally said that she fired Shia LaBeouf when Shia LaBeouf then came out and said, actually, she didn't, and here's a video to prove it. We also have Miss Flo, who, Florence Pugh, and Olivia Wilde are at odds with each other for some reason we don't really know because no one's saying anything, but it might be because Florence Pugh actually might have directed half the film. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, and I think you summed that up pretty good, Shawn. I have nothing else to say when it comes to the drama other than everything that you said. It's gonna really dig into maybe some aspects of the film that we may or may not have liked, and it maybe wasn't because of the writing, it was because of the writer directing, but what was behind all that? Considering all that drama you just spewed out, it's true.
And there's a lot more. Just to kind of fill in the situation, so apparently Shia LaBeouf was going to play the role that Harry Styles eventually took over. Then afterwards, Harry Styles had a bit of a relationship of sorts with Olivia Wilde, and that kind of added to the tension on set.
And then he was getting paid like 4 or 5 times more than Florence Pugh was getting paid. And after seeing the movie, we can all agree on the fact that Florence Pugh was the lead of this film. Harry Styles definitely was not.
But considering the drama is a piece that is something that maybe has been building up to this film, the film itself is of course something to go ahead and now chat about since it's actually here. So the story is something that, personally speaking, I found to be very intriguing as it got started. I actually think that the opening act was really good. I found it to be very compelling and something that I really thought was a cool mystery to be unfolded as it was going through. It wasn't until later on that I thought it started to fall apart. I think collectively we may be on a similar page, but I know there's slight differences. So, Dan, when it comes to as far as, did you think it was as strong of an opening, or what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so at the opening, I really thought that I was like, why does this have that low of a score on Rotten Tomatoes? Why do people hate this so much? Because it was really good, and the cinematography was good all the way throughout. I loved the opening, and I loved until the third act, I would say, that it falls apart writing-wise. Great performances, though, from Florence Pugh especially, I guess.
Some people would say that in the third act, it actually starts building up and we're getting the action scenes and there's actually things that are happening in the movie, because the first 2 acts, even though I did find them interesting, I think it was more because I was intrigued of learning the secrets of the film rather than what the actual substance of the film was. Because what we were getting in the first 2 acts was a lot of relentless repetition of Florence Pugh going crazy and seeing all these visions. It was visually stunning to watch, but it kind of got a little bit repetitive, kind of hindered the film a little bit.
For me, Jace, talking about how you found the story compelling enough, from the trailers alone months ago and leading up to, I was excited for Don't Worry, Darling. It was in my top 10 most anticipated films of the year. The drama that we just spoke about did knock it down, but I was at least a little bit optimistic that it could have been something a lot better than what it was. I think, Shawn, I align with you almost completely when you say that it was very repetitive. I felt the first 2 acts were compelling enough for me personally. Why enough? Because those first 2 acts were just repetitive. Like I said, I don't think it's spoiler to say that it's just Florence Pugh slowly losing her mind in the kitchen. Goes to the next scene where Florence Pugh is slowly losing her mind in the bathroom. And then it goes to the next scene 15 minutes later where Florence Pugh is slowly losing her mind in the driveway. That's the first 2 acts of this movie.
So true, so true. But what the third act ended up proving is that sometimes the thought process of what the mystery could be is more compelling than the answers to that mystery itself.
Hallelujah.
And that is one of the most difficult components as far as being a writer. I think that that's one of the toughest story elements to nail is how to have it have a successful payoff. And that's a part that I can't really hold against Olivia Wilde as much because she didn't write it, she just directed it. I guess that's something that kind of opens up a quick question to, I know she hasn't directed too much, so what did we think about the directorial style of Olivia Wilde here?
I personally don't see any problem with her direction, and I know a lot of people will say, you know, they're not happy with Olivia Wilde for whatever reason because of her promotion for the film or the way that she might have lied to the audience by saying she fired Shia LaBeouf. But if you look at her direction, and this might have to do with the cinematographer, who's amazing as well, but like, this is a beautiful looking film. I don't think anyone going into this would say that like, oh, there was nothing exciting to see on the screen. This is a beautiful film. The score is incredible. She put together a great movie. I think where the issues lie is the screenplay and possibly the editing and how they put this movie together, and it kind of ended up feeling like a cobbled together mess.
Yeah, I'll be honest here, Shawn. I have an issue with the direction.
Okay, fair enough.
I think the concept of what we saw is a lot more intriguing than the way that Olivia Wilde decided to go about said concept. We mentioned it, and I'm not going to go into it again, but the repetitive nature, I don't see how that's good direction to just repeat things over and over again. And while I do agree, the cinematography is great, and after thinking and marinating on some bit, I now do appreciate the production design a lot more than I did at first. But when we want to talk about the actual story, I'm sorry, but I feel like repeating something over and over again, in my opinion at least, is not good direction. For example, figure skating. If somebody's just figure skating in a circle makes a perfect circle, that's a perfect circle. But then she keeps doing that perfect circle again and again and again. And you're like, I kind of want to see you do a figure eight. Are you actually a good figure skater if all you can do is circles?
But do you feel that that's more attributing to the directing or the storytelling? Because I feel like she just has a story and is trying to shoot it as well as she can.
Yeah.
She's not actually the one who wrote it and put it together. And really, I would blame that more at the screenwriters because they're the ones that are choosing to write that story go over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm not really against the concept of the little bit of repetition. I think the runtime is something that it easily could have been chopped down maybe 20 minutes to a half hour and it would have really worked in its favor.
100%.
With that being said, I think that the whole repetition aspect was really nothing more than to showcase more and more situations of something's not right here. I found it to be a situation where I enjoyed the aspect of slowly seeing little by little that kind of gave you as an audience member clues that something was afoot until it eventually came to be. Now, do I think it took too long to get there?
Yeah.
That's where I was saying, right, that they could have chopped down the runtime. And that's unfortunate because when you do start to get the answers, it's also kind of what makes them a little bit more lackluster. Because you're like, I waited so long to get here, and it's almost as if you were at Universal and you waited too long in a line to get on a ride, and then that ride was disappointing or something, right?
I think that there has to be something to be said about Olivia Wilde, this being her second directorial effort, and Booksmart being such a small movie and very like comedic and very, you know, just a very simple movie done very well. I think to go into something like this that's completely different, a psychological thriller with a pretty decent sized budget on a large scale with an A-list cast, she tried to swing for the fences, and I don't think that she necessarily, you know, hit a home run. I think that she was attempting to do too much, and she's not ready for the game she tried to play.
A great way of putting it.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say to that other than I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think she should have waited. Maybe this would be her third or fourth film because Booksmart was so good, but like you said, it was a smaller scale. I didn't have a problem with the directing either, though. In this, I thought that cinematography was beautiful, and I thought she did have some good directing. And I'm in the middle, kind of with Jace about the repetition. I didn't care about it as much, but yeah, I do think it could have cut off some runtime. I think. But no, I for the most part thought it was compelling, and I did like the third act at times. Like it was thrilling at times, but I just think it didn't totally come together.
It was thrilling to a degree because stuff started to finally happen.
Yeah.
Right? So we started to get a little bit of answers. Whether they were the answers that we were wanting is up for discussion. And I guess let's start to get into that. So, Spoiler alert, because I guess the majority of what we mentioned so far hasn't really been so. So if you don't want to know more about the in-depths of this movie, then perhaps this is where you go ahead and click away. I feel like this is something that gets pretty nuts when we realize of what's really taking place here. And long story short, Florence Pugh discovers that this whole town that they're living in, that seems to be a fairy tale town, for lack of better terms, isn't real. It's all a simulation that is basically taking place where she's being held there against her will from her husband, who's Harry Styles. I'm not fully against that. I like the concept of it being some crazy twist, and I knew that was going to be coming at some point or another. You could almost tell from the trailers that it was going to be some twist of some kind. The problem that I definitely find within it is not so much the twist itself, it's so much what they're trying to, I guess, portray as a message afterwards, which I don't really understand how someone was to be able to take away that message based on the way the movie was presented. When things start to happen, it's very abrupt, which is weird to say because there was so much buildup behind it. So you would think it should be paying off by now, but it ended up taking such a weird turn into left field out of nowhere that kind of threw me for a bit of a loop that I wasn't really looking for because I was enjoying it up until that point. John, when you saw the actual reveal of the twist and then what that led to afterwards, what were your thoughts?
Just like you, I had no issue with the reveal of the twist. If anything, I'd say I quite liked it. It's a lot like a Black Mirror episode. Yeah. I even joked around saying it reminded me a lot of WandaVision at times, and I'm okay with that. Just because a movie has done it doesn't mean that any other movie that is going to do it is going to be bad. You can do it and it be good. I think the issue is what they tried to commentate because of that twist that doesn't make a lot of sense to people that did not know about the drama, which I think that's why we started this video off talking about the drama, because behind the drama was a pre-explanation of what the commentary within the film was trying to go for. Because, Jace, I think you'll be okay with me telling you this. You had no idea that Olivia Wilde was trying to go for a sort of like female empowering movie.
Yeah. Female pleasure, all about the women, which is great.
And when it finally ends and you're going, what was that all about? Left field is a proper definition and explanation for what you're talking about. For me, I'm watching it and I'm going, oh, those interviews that Wilde has given make sense with what she's trying to do. Not saying that she did it well, but with what she's trying to do, it makes sense to me. But I can't blame you that your first reaction out of theater was, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like the women taking over and stuff like that. I thought this was just a thrilling mystery.
One of the oddest moments in the entire movie, quite possibly the oddest moment for me, was Gemma Chan's character, who is the wife of Chris Pine, who essentially is the villain of the entire thing, right? He's the guy who's put this whole fake world together where men are in charge and holding women slaves. This all leads into a situation where later on in the movie, Gemma Chan, who has been like the perfect wife up until this point, completely supportive of Chris Pine, never showing even the slightest sign of wanting to potentially betray him in any format, throws a knife into his chest at the end and then says, now it's our turn.
But then they don't elaborate anymore on that. That's all you get.
That's the final part that we see of them.
So my biggest thing, and I think you brought up a great thing, Jace, is that there is so much buildup in those first two acts. They should have been taking their time to actually do important things. Like explaining all of these little things, these supporting characters, who they are, actually like building up all of this stuff to make that twist have any sort of impact. Because then once the twist happens, it's like, and then it just kind of flounders around, and we don't know anything really about who this woman is in the real world besides she's a doctor and she might or might not like her job. Like, why do we care about these characters inside or outside of the world? Because they don't develop enough there.
And I think that's where the editing of the movie really could have helped it.
Yes.
We talk about how long that repetitive nature of the first 2 acts take. Imagine shaving off some of that and spending more time, which we didn't spend a lot of time on, explaining the twist and the rules behind the world they're trying to build, in which they only take less than 5 minutes of screen time, I believe, explaining that.
There's so many different things that I have questions about that they don't explain, and I am all about ambiguity in film, but there needs to be more to for that ambiguity to pay off, for us to want to have these conversations and really delve into them, because it almost feels as if we're cheated because we weren't given enough material to go by.
The ambiguity works nicely for overall big things that are meant to be left open for interpretation. But with stuff like this, with what we're talking about and our issues with the film, is those are things that you need to define that logic and have clear lines of definition for the audience to even respect what it is that you're trying to do. And it did seem to kind of falter quite a bit or fluctuate back and forth between what exactly is or isn't possible within this world. There is the whole concept as far as people being able, if they die in that world, then they're dead in the real world. And then there's no sense of repercussions from that.
Or why you'd even pay to put yourself in that place to then be killed in that and then be killed in the real world. Who would do that?
Exactly.
So many questions that aren't explained.
Right. And I mean, the concept of Harry Styles eventually dying by the hand of Florence Pugh. So then in the real world, again, now what are the repercussions of that? She's technically in some way murdered her husband, and don't get me wrong, he's the who put her there in the first place. But I do feel like this is a situation where isn't there some sort of real world type of events that are going to then take place to affect this? Also, they make it clear in the movie, Olivia Wilde's character tells Florence Pugh, they're going to come after you in the real world.
Yes.
So they must already know where she is. So
exactly. Of course they would know.
So at the end, when she does wake up and we hear her take those breaths as the title kind of goes across the screen, and we realize, oh, it's okay, she's woken up and she's made it out. Is there anything to really be happy for? Because now she essentially is not going to go back to her regular life. Her husband's dead. Yeah. They know where she lives. Yeah. And they're going to come after her and probably chase her for the rest of her life because they were so adamant about everybody keeping stuff secret.
That's a really good point,
unless you want to say that piss poor turn of Gemma Chan would then keep her safe because now a woman is in charge. Well, I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, but I think that's what the commentary was trying to go for in those last 5 minutes.
And I think we should go back a little bit with the Gemma Chan thing, because I think you brought this up yesterday when we went to go see the movie, but if they had developed her character more, and if they had added any sort of story to the Gemma Chan character, besides her being the perfect wife, somehow she was going behind Chris Pine's back and starting something with all the women in the town, if there was any kind of subplot with Gemma Chan to make that final twist mean anything, then it would be fine. But there's nothing to even lead her to that,
The perfect opportunity for a Gemma Chan character exploration would be to find out that her instruction in the ballet studio was actually slowly turning the wheel for her to take over. But we don't even get that. Because I can't take an argument of someone saying maybe that's what she was doing. Impossible. Because what she was doing in the ballet class, the mantra that she keeps repeating is Chris Pine's message over and over and over and over again. There's no way she was for women. Dan, do you think these cons that we're explaining here, do you think if there wasn't any drama, maybe Olivia Wilde or the screenwriters or whoever is really in charge behind all this could have had that time and that patience to make a better movie?
Yes, I do think that the drama definitely slowed some things down or changed some things or sped some things up even. Because the Gemma Chan thing especially, I think that first of all, they just wanted another twist. They just wanted to shock the audience, because I don't like it either. I had an idea, we should have at least seen Gemma Chan maybe talking with Charlotte, the
Olivia Wilde.
So the woman that slit her.
Oh,
Margaret.
Talking behind her husband's back with her, and she was in on it somehow. And maybe talking to Olivia Wilde as well. So I do think the Gemma Chan thing, especially, that character must have been, even though she wasn't part of the drama, that has to be something to do with it, because no way did they think that that was a good reveal and a well executed character.
My biggest thought process was that perhaps in the audition process, they clearly were being very careful about who they were choosing and selecting. And I'm guessing that Gemma Chan couldn't have been entirely in control of that. But it would have been really cool if she had more control than perhaps anyone realized. And she was specifically trying to choose more women that kind of fell in the same category as Olivia Wilde, who did not want to go back to the real world, was aware of her situation in this virtual reality, and was okay with it given the fact that her kids existed there. If maybe there was an aspect of Gemma Chan being on a mission to find more women like that, and that we realized it wasn't just Olivia Wilde that knew about it, all the women actually were okay with this because they were planning to then take over. Again, there would have been at least been more root to what was going on there, and that's the reason why that payoff, there is no payoff.
No. You bring up a great point, Jace, but my biggest thing is we don't know the rules or the logic of this world. We don't know who Chris Pine or Gemma Chan are in the real world. And that's another problem that I have with it. Who is this character besides a podcaster that Harry Styles is listening to before he goes in or whatnot? All we know is that we know so little about who these characters are in the real world that what they're doing in the simulation means nothing. And that is a huge problem that I have. Like, are they actually in cahoots together, those two, in the real world? Or is he just in cahoots? Or is this just Harry Styles' own personalized world? None of this is explained, so none of it means anything.
Well, and I also can't help but throw in then with the kind of aftermath of this all. Gemma Chan takes over. What is the end game here? Is the purpose to now make it a reverse world where men are the slaves? And I feel like that is the message. Because the end credits involve a scene where there's the same ballerina dance going on that we kind of see throughout the film.
Swimming,
But now it's men that are doing that. And I think that that's trying to imply that women are now in charge and taking over and men are the slaves at this point. But how is that something to get behind and root for? Is that really something that is much more of a happy ending? And why are you not just as bad as the people who did this to you in the first place then, if that's all that you're trying to do is flip the tables like that?
That's a good point.
Yeah, unless, Jace, you brought up a theory. Maybe we'll want to say the theory.
So one of the main things that could have been a quick, simple fix to turn this whole thing around is if they just made it where essentially Harry Styles wasn't the best of guys. We learned that Florence Pugh's character is a doctor in the real world. And in the real world, they're actually a couple. And Harry Styles is portrayed as a pretty decent guy who just doesn't really have his stuff together, for lack of better terms. But he's trying, it seems. It would have been so much nicer if they portrayed him as, let's just say, one of Florence Pugh's patients, who then she healed up, right? And in the midst of the whole time of them being together, he really gained a liking to her. And after he was all healed up, he became disappointed that he wasn't able to see her anymore and started stalking her because of that. Eventually leading to a kidnap situation, holding her against her will in this virtual reality world where she was forced to believe that she is his wife. And then it would slowly turn into a situation of not only am I in a fake world, I'm not even actually with this person.
Right.
And it would have really added to, I think, the little bit of a horror element that they're including. And it doesn't mean they needed to go full-blown horror, but you also would have been able to root for Florence Pugh's character way more at this point. And there would have been so much more to get behind entirely.
Absolutely.
You could find out that all the guys happen to be like that.
Yeah, and then it's like, kill them all, or let's get these women out of here, or, you know, like, have some more to be rooting for just besides men are bad. I don't know, it just didn't work.
The women get out, and they somehow can force the men, they have to stay in.
They have to
and
stay
it's just
in.
the men.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of punishment for throwing them in there in the first place.
Yeah.
And at that point, even as a group of guys here, it would be pretty easy to get into that and root for the women in that case. And clearly that's what they wanted. But they didn't do something as simple as an adjustment like that to make anyone feel that way.
Right, because at the end of the day, with Florence and with Harry Styles in the real world, are we rooting for either of them in the real world? Is there anything to root for? Like, she seems kind of like complacent in her life, and so does he. So there's really nothing to escape from. So what is there to root for?
I can't help but think, as much as we are talking about the things we don't like about this movie, concerning its screenwriter, even concerning Olivia Wilde, I can't wait for her third one.
Yeah, she was ambitious.
It wasn't a home run,
No.
but it's definitely not in the low 30 percentile within Rotten Tomatoes.
No.
I don't think that either. I'd love to give her another chance, and I really hope she makes better decisions when it comes to being an actual leader on set.
Yeah.
And hopefully that movie will be a lot better.
I actually am glad that you decided to mention that real quick, because it is totally fair to say that although there are things to complain about, the only reason that there's any passionate complaining is because we did enjoy the buildup that was getting there.
Yeah.
And so it's really unsatisfying and discouraging to go ahead and have that be the payoff, again, or what we think there is a lack thereof.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I did very much enjoy a story like this. I would not be against seeing more stuff in that type of area. I'm not saying she has to make more projects exactly like this,
Right.
but the point is I really attract to this type of a story.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, even with there being some things in the third act that didn't really come together or don't make a heck of a lot of sense, there was really still a lot that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I thought the unfolding of finding out what was happening, though it took too long, was still very interesting to kind of see happen. The visuals that were placed in throughout, though some didn't make entirely a lot of sense, were still interesting to see.
Absolutely. I think on a technical aspect, this is Olivia Wilde's masterpiece. On a technical aspect, it's camera work.
I think its
the
score is just incredible.
Score, yeah.
And the score is
Some-
literally elevating
yeah.
a lot of moments in this movie
It's
to the next level.
visual effects.
The dinner scene.
The dinner scene,
Yeah.
we didn't bring up the dinner. I love the dinner scene. Chris Pine versus Florence Pugh. I
But
love
when
where
it
that was going.
when it comes to
too.
a creative headspace, no.
I just feel like there was nobody there to like literally like have people like sit down with her or the screenwriter and be like, let's work on another draft of this screenplay or another draft of this film. I feel like they just released it. It has all of the potential to be amazing, and that's why we are talking like this right now, because there's so much there. But at the end of the day, it's like it just needed a few more edits, a few more tweaks to the screenplay. This could have been something really special. I'm curious to know what you guys think of these two actors and the whole cast in general.
As far as performances go, I actually thought everyone did a relatively decent job. I think Florence Pugh obviously stole the show.
Yeah.
And not just because she was the lead. She does a phenomenal job and really makes you kind of, even though we were saying there's not a full sense of logic, you still are behind her. You really are feeling for her character in this story, I felt like. Harry Styles, I feel like, is getting a heck of a lot of flack, and it's not that I can't see why, but I just don't think it deserves that much flack.
I agree.
It could have been maybe a better person in the role, but at the same time, I just don't think it was anything to really go absolutely nuts over. I know there was some chaotic conversation about the accent that he was using and everything, and I get it, right? Kind of fluctuated back and forth here and there, but nonetheless, he held his own. And then as far as everybody else, I enjoyed the supporting roles. I thought Chris Pine really held his own as the villain. He really showed that he can bring the presence of a villain to a movie. And I'm kind of curious to see if that actually ever happens again in a future project.
I want it. I thought he was phenomenal.
Yep.
When it comes to Florence Pugh, I think she's incredible, as she always is in every role that she's in. But I do have to say there was a part of me that felt like we are watching her in Midsommar, like all over again, like her kind of going crazy and the crying and stuff. So there was a couple of moments where I was like, I feel like I'm watching the same character from Midsommar, but in this situation. Besides that, I think she's phenomenal. I do think that Harry Styles, everyone's being way too hard on him. I do agree with that, but like his accent's all over the place, and he doesn't really bring a whole lot to the character. There's not a whole lot to give to that character, though. I think the character is underwritten as well. I think most of the supporting cast is. I would say Harry Styles, keep trying. You're not bad.
A lot of praise for Florence Pugh here. I didn't hate her. She was the standout.
Yeah.
But I felt like everyone, including her in this movie, were decent.
No, John, surprisingly, I somewhat agree with John. I love Florence Pugh. She's one of my favorites. But I don't think she's not award worthy. She's not in this. I love her though. But yeah, Harry Styles, I agree with you guys. I didn't think he was that bad. Chris Pine's really good.
Chris Pine's
If they gave Gemma Chan more, she could have been good. But she's just. But for the most part, I think everyone did really good. I had a theory about Harry Styles' accents. Like, in the application, you choose what language you want to do for this. So maybe because his regular person doesn't know the British accent, his accent in the world was kind of wavering. And I think they probably maybe added that in after because he wasn't really good at doing it.
Wouldn't that be so bad if they literally like, ooh, the accent's really bad, so we're gonna have to go in there and edit this this whole tweak to this story. I mean, it's possibility.
It's possible, yeah.
Which is weird because in the real life scenes, he actually does a regular American accent fairly well.
Right, and that's what makes his simulation accent so confusing.
Just a few extra bonus questions to showcase that the logic here doesn't always exactly add up. Dan?
What is the plane? Why is the plane? Who's the plane? Where'd it go? Where'd it come from?
What's the purpose of it?
What are the earthquakes? Why is everything moving around and jangling every day?
Why is the third act trash? Why did Harry Styles care that Florence Pugh was being taken away in that really dramatic and well-acted scene when he knew damn well probably that she was just going to be brought back brand spanking new, all fresh, clean slate as a good old wife again?
Comment below your theories or answer ours.
And with that, we give our ratings.
I want to go with 3 out of 5 just because on a visual standpoint, and I think it's a spectacular looking and sounding film. I just don't think that the script or the story comes together in any way, so I have to go with 2.75 toy planes out of 5. I just wish that this movie came together in a better way. It either should have been condensed down to 1 hour into a Black Mirror episode, or it should have been a limited series where they actually got to develop these characters and these subplots more to actually make it make sense.
When it comes to my rating, I'd like to remind you what they are, because it's been a while for me. Now listen, when it comes to my rating from worst to best, I have the very worst, which would be trash and a half. Then it would be a pass. And then a should watch type of film. A repeat watch. And the very top, a banger. This is not one of those. But it's also not a pass. I would say you should definitely go and watch this movie. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be up there for me. It probably is going to be smack dab in the middle, or maybe even a little bit lower than that. But I still think you should watch it for the discussion alone.
Yeah.
But what would I give? Don't worry, darling. Don't worry, darling. It's a 6 out of 10 for me. That's a 6 out of 10. But yeah, I pretty much echo.
I'm sorry. That's a 6 out of 10. A 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10.
I echo what Shawn says about everything, though. Really good directing, cinematography, all that. Really good performances. So yeah, I'd go a 6 out of 10.
Well, I don't normally give things ratings, but for the sake of the situation, I'm going to. I really enjoyed the premise of this, and it's just kind of right up my alley as far as the type of mind-messing stories that I like. So I'm going to go 3 out of 5 just because of how much I like the premise of it and where it could have really led to. It had a lot of potential, just did not quite stick the landing for me.
Yep.
And with that all being said, folks, I guess it's time to bring it to a close. Our first review in person all together. Can you believe it?
Yeah!
This is the time where we go ahead and ask you all to comment down below what your thoughts are on this movie. Let us know all of the things you liked and disliked and everything in between. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate it. Plus, we've got all the links to all of our individual channels in the description below. Peace, everybody. We love you.
That was awesome, guys.
That was
So good.
That was a lot of fun.
I can't believe we actually did a review together.
We did it.
That was a lot of fun.
I'm so fucking happy right now. I'm on cloud 9. That was awesome.
It was.